So I think we often maybe not think of ourselves as having a permanent identity, but more like on an unconscious level, assuming ourselves to be unchangeable, certain characteristics. Uh, I don't normally see people or myself. I'll just speak for myself. I don't usually find myself saying that I am lazy or I am hardworking or I'm disciplined. A lot of the times I say most of the time I'm this. So most of the time I'm this. But what I find as well is that a lot of my unconscious thoughts say things like, why am I doing this? I'm usually disciplined. Uh, And I think I wanted to talk about that word of usually, or this sentence, or this kind of belief that I'm usually something. I'm usually something of my identity. Because that implies that, well, you have a stagnant identity, which of course you don't, because it's always changing and always forming and reforming and also solidifying. It's more like we contribute a number of our actions to and behaviors to certain characteristics, right? All right. So if you continuously act lazy, if you continuously do actions that are lazy, then you accumulate more, I guess, let's call them units. And the more units you get of laziness, the more likely you are to do that action. So if I start off, let me give you an example. So in my young 20s, I would never stray away from my schedule. I would be so disciplined that I always follow my schedule. And when you first start doing that, it's really hard because it's usually you're usually fighting against habits that you've done before. But once you contribute one unit of discipline, another unit of discipline, another, and every day afterwards, you continuously contribute more units of discipline until you have a plethora of discipline. That is kind of how our identities are formed. Is not necessarily that we are disciplined, because I can easily work my way back away from that, right? It's more of like an accumulation of actions that turns into a habit that becomes who we are in the present moment. And when we say I'm not usually like this, we're kind of referring to a time that we accumulated a lot of those units. So for me, example is I'm finding I'm not usually disciplined, undisciplined. There you go, like this. But I'm referring to a time when I've had all these units when I was in the young 20s, where I wouldn't let anything stray from my way, get in my way from doing what I set out to do, even if I was hungry, thirsty, tired, depressed, anxious, whatever. I would just stubbornly move onward. But in that time, I accumulate all those units, and now they depleted to a point that I had to rebuild it back or kind of balance it out now. Because now, if I'm asking myself, well, I'm usually not this undisciplined, it means I've accumulated more laziness units. Now, we can argue that there should maybe be a balance between it, but I feel like that's more of a representation of how our identities work. It's more of a they're more of our habits and our ever-changing nature in the present that our actions are contributing to uh, within every moment. So I wanted to talk about this a little bit because as of my life and finding that at the end of my stays, I am getting a little bit more lazy. I'm just watching TV a little bit more and finding this thought creeping in. So I wanted to kind of solidify, well, not solidify, but formulate why this is happening, why this is going on. And maybe it can help you a little bit more or two of why you might be feeling a certain way. Because I don't think this is just contributing to just laziness. This is also things like depression and anxiety. So for example, if you're not going out into nature enough, if you're not socializing enough, if you're not participating in meaningful work, and you do that day after day after day after day, you start accumulating units of a certain type of depression, one of loneliness, one of meaninglessness, and one of of lack of biological needs, because we're made to be outside. And if we deprive ourselves every day of being outside, then we're lacking our biological needs. And that's contributing to these certain types of depressions. And if we could continue to contribute to those, we get to a point where our depression gets so heavy with units, we don't even want to do the things that are good, going to help us get out of that, because there's so many units contributing to this depression of loneliness that we kind of go back into the habit of being lonely, unfortunately. So hopefully whenever you're going forward, maybe think about how your identity, your ever-flowing and changing identity, kind of like this, like with units, and kind of find that you can change yourself by contributing more units to certain areas you want to improve on. Not saying that they're going to be easy, or it's going to be changing, or that you're not going to have setbacks and failures that are going to push you back, but it's good to know that we can get back to where we want to be, or get back from away from saying I was usually like this, to a more stable state of, well, I am like this now, with contributing units. It's a weird concept I kind of made up, but I like to think about it like that. Units and habits. All right. But other than that, I will see you guys later. Good night. See you later. Bye.